There's a strange kind of intelligence psychologists rarely talk about, and the people who have it usually don't know they do. It doesn't show up on IQ tests. It doesn't come from books. It comes from something almost no one wants to survive. Researchers call it post-traumatic growth. But there's a rarer version of it, one that quietly rewires the mind into something sharper, calmer, and unusually perceptive. Psychologists have a name for it: traumatic intelligence, and if you have it, 6 quiet signs give you away. But before we go there, understand this. Traumatic intelligence isn't a gift you asked for. It's something that builds while trying to survive. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why the calmest people in the room are often the ones who survive the loudest storms. The first sign is subtle. You walk into a room and within seconds, you already know something is off. You can't always explain how you know. You just do. Psychologists call this hypervigilance. But in people with traumatic intelligence, it evolves into something more precise, a kind of emotional radar. The brain, having once lived through unpredictability, learned to scan micro-expressions, tone shifts, and body language faster than conscious thought. Neuroscience shows the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, becomes remarkably efficient in people who once had to stay alert to stay safe. But here's what most people miss. What looks like anxiety on the outside is often deep perception on the inside. You're not paranoid. You're just fluent in a language most people never learned to read. The second sign shows up in mirrors. You look your age, but inside you feel like you've already lived several lifetimes. Conversations with people your own age sometimes feel strangely shallow, like you're standing on a different floor of the same building. Developmental psychologists have found that early emotional hardship accelerates something called cognitive maturity. The mind grows up faster than the body. You developed emotional literacy before most people learned emotional grammar. It's why small talk drains you. It's why you crave conversations that actually mean something. But there's a quiet cost. Feeling older than your age can make you feel alone, even in a crowded room. The third sign is one you probably hate about yourself. You overthink everything. You replay conversations, you analyze tones, you dissect words that other people forgot they even said. Psychologists call this rumination, and usually it's linked to anxiety. But there's a twist. In people with traumatic intelligence, this overthinking isn't just worry. It's pattern recognition. You're not looping thoughts because you're broken. You're looping them because your brain learned early that details save lives. Studies on cognitive flexibility show that people who grew up in unpredictable environments often develop sharper problem-solving abilities under pressure. Your overthinking, when calm, becomes strategy. When anxious, it becomes exhaustion. The line between the two is thinner than most people realize. The fourth sign is one others notice before you do. When everyone else panics, you go quiet. Your heart rate barely moves, your thoughts sharpen. Time seems to slow down just enough for you to think clearly. Neuroscientists call this a trauma-conditioned nervous system. The mind learned long ago that panic doesn't help. Precision does. Where others feel chaos, you feel clarity. It's the same reason surgeons, pilots, and first responders often come from difficult childhoods. But when the storm passes, something strange happens. You crash. Quietly, alone, where no one can see. Because holding others together takes a strength most people never see, and rarely thank you for. The fifth sign is one of the quietest. Silence doesn't scare you. It speaks to you. Most people fill silence with noise, music, scrolling, chatter. You use silence like a room where you finally get to rest. Psychologists studying the default mode network, the part of the brain active during rest, found that reflective solitude sharpens creativity, empathy, and long-term memory. People who once needed silence to survive often grow into adults who need silence to think. Your silence isn't emptiness. It's the space where your best ideas quietly live. The sixth sign is the most misunderstood. You feel everything intensely, but almost no one sees it. On the outside, you look composed. On the inside, an entire ocean is moving. Attachment theory offers a clue. Children who learned early that expressing pain wasn't safe often grow into adults who feel privately and process alone. So you learn to translate feeling into thought, into art, into work, into quiet acts of care that others rarely trace back to you. This is why people often describe you as deep, mysterious, or hard to read. You're not hiding. You're just careful with what you share. And here's the part most people miss. The ones who feel the most are often the ones who say the least. But traumatic intelligence has a shadow. Every sharpened instinct came from a moment that shouldn't have happened. The perception, the calmness, the depth. They weren't chosen. They were built, piece by piece, often in silence. And that's why healing for people like you isn't about becoming someone new. It's about finally letting the person you already became rest. Because the strongest minds aren't the ones that were never broken. They're the ones that learned how to think clearly inside the breaking. If more than a few of these signs felt personal, it's not a coincidence. It's a quiet map of what you've survived. So here's the question worth sitting with tonight. Which of these 6 signs did you recognize most in yourself? And when do you think it first began? Share your answer in the comments. Someone else reading them tonight might finally feel a little less alone. If this video quietly said something you needed to hear, consider subscribing. There's more coming, and the next one goes even deeper. Because next time, we uncover the 7 silent traits of people whose childhoods forced them to grow up too fast, and the hidden strengths almost none of them realize they carry. Until then, stay curious, stay gentle with yourself, and remember, the mind that questions itself the most is usually the one worth listening to.